So hello, everyone. I'm Lee Nichols, Vice President of Content for Gulf Energy Information and Editor-in-Chief of Hydrocarbon Processing. And I'd like to welcome you all to Hydrocarbon Processing's Executive Series, where we examine the many trends, challenges, solutions, and people within the global refining and petrochemical industries. Now, we have a very special guest joining us today, Luis Cirihal, who is the President of Refining Technologies for W.R. Grace. Luis, we want to welcome you in and want to thank you for providing us a couple minutes of your time. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Lee. Thank you so much for having me. Greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, before we dive into the discussion today, can you let the viewers know a little bit more about your organization, W.R. Grace, and of course, your role with the company?
Sure, absolutely. So W.R. Grace is really a leading specialty chemical company. We, in essence, have three large businesses, if you will. Refining Technologies, which is the business that I lead, with a very heavy focus on FCC specifically. There is a business which is the specialty catalyst business that is fundamentally a business that looks at catalysts into the polyolefins industry, as well as having a licensing of polypropylene to the industry as well. And lastly, we have the Materials Technologies business, which is very much a specialty silica based business, providing silica into a multitude of markets and industries. And as you mentioned, Lee, I'm relatively new to Grace. I joined Grace in June of 2023, so I'm approximately 9-10 months into the company as the business president for the Refining Technologies role.
Excellent. And so I want to dive a little bit into the conversation here, especially one thing you just mentioned, of course, and that's on FCC. And I know I have some questions revolving around FCC, propylene production, things like that. But from your point of view, because I know your background, you were with Dow Chemical. So I'm kind of curious. So what are your thoughts on the recovery of the petrochemical markets? And what do you think is the impact on the future of the FCC?
Well, Lee, as you know, the petrochemical markets are really experiencing challenging economic conditions right now. As a matter of fact, some of the value chains, such as polyolefins, saw significant destocking since late 2022. In the long term, refineries and FCCs have really a major role to play in satisfying petrochemical demand. We do expect growth in petrochemical feedstocks, mainly propylene, providing a tailwind for FCC in the long term. You look at the refining sector, it really has a very active role to play here. And at Grace, a key part of our FCC strategy is to continue to invest in our assets and our research. We're really committed to the industry and will remain nimble in delivering solutions.
And so when we look at, say, FCC propylene production, is there a technology runway for increasing FCC propylene, let's say, relative to other technologies?
Absolutely. We do believe the outlook to be incredibly promising. If you look at new FCC units that have started up recently in the Eastern Hemisphere, as well as some of the units that are expected to come online in the near to medium term, those are propylene-focused units. We do expect demand growth for catalyst and additive technologies that enable increased propylene yields. There's really a significant runway potential for both catalyst technology deployment as well as unit hardware investment. As you may know, Grace was actually the first to commercialize ZSM-5 additive technology for FCCs and really has been innovating ever since, as exemplified by Zavanti, our latest generation ZSM-5 additive technology for max propylene. Innovation in the technology to maximize propylene for the FCC is really a strategic priority for Grace and a major research and ideation focus for the global R&D team.
And so I'm kind of curious about this as well, because like I mentioned in the beginning, you came from Dow Chemical. So you're coming from basically the polyethylene world, and now you're going into refining. So I'm curious, what insights or I guess perspectives do you have on the industry that you didn't have before?
That's a great question, Lee. Look, my polyolefins background has really made me keenly aware of the importance of the advantage feedstock positions, right? And if you look at the oil to gas spread that has led to a significant transition of the polyethylene industry in natural gas-rich regions to preferentially steam crack gas ultimately created the need for the on-demand propylene, right? And if you look at this, the industry has really turned to FCC as one of the sources to fill that demand for propylene, and that demand is going to continue to grow over time. As we look at the current megatrends that shape the industry, such as chemical recycling, for instance, one can clearly see the interconnection between refining and petrochemical becoming stronger as the capabilities that exist in an integrated refinery become enablers in addressing those evolving needs. The industry is definitely continuing to pursue further develop technologies to increase the FCC petrochemical yields, as well as adapting refinery configurations, ultimately with the same objective.
No, absolutely. And one area too, I know I'm glad you mentioned petrochemical and refining integration because it's a huge trend that's, of course, going on right now globally. And of course, one of the other trends is the idea of sustainability within the hydrocarbon processing industry. So can you tell us a little bit more about your company's recent advancements to help boost sustainability in refining fuels?
Sure. Look, as you just mentioned, right, there's really a growing interest in processing alternative feedstocks in the FCC, largely driven by regulation that have incentives that really are outweighing the costs today. We've been conducting research in co-processing for the past few decades now and have gained significant commercial experience together with our refining customers. As a matter of fact, there have been recently published articles and co-presentations that have been made at various industry events with a Canadian refiner, showcasing how we help them meet their sustainability goals, notably in FCC co-processing. In just last year, in 2023, ART Hydroprocessing, our Grace's joint venture with Chevron, introduced an advancement in renewable heavy-duty transportation fuel production technology, Endeavor, a hydroprocessing catalyst solution for renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel production, whether co-processing or processing 100% renewable feedstock. ART really leads the industry in contaminant removal and de-waxing technology, both key technologies in producing renewable diesel and SAF from biofeeds. ART is really well positioned to maximize yields of renewable diesel and SAF from a range of feeds.
And one of the last questions I had for you too, as well, is what are some of the most challenging objectives that you hear from your customers, and what is Grace doing to support them, and finding solutions for those different challenges that they might have?
Well, as you spoke a little bit earlier, right, as you can imagine, sustainability and energy transition introduce very much a new and dynamic challenge to the FCC, right? But the traditional value drivers, such as feedstock flexibility, are still a key focus for most of the industry, particularly as we see changes in feedstock supply, given the ever-evolving geopolitical landscape that we're experiencing. Our strategy is focused on the long term, given our commitment to the industry, but of course, we're not losing sight of the near-term demands and challenges. For instance, refiners in all regions continue to want FCC catalysts that offer metal tolerance. Our research team has recently made several breakthroughs and great strides in the area of iron tolerance for FCC catalysts.
Excellent. And so I guess before we head out, Luis, do you have any closing thoughts before we conclude the interview?
Yeah, Lee, what I'd say is, in summary, the future of the refining industry remains bright for all the reasons that we're discussing. It will continue to be shaped by the healthiest and most strategic refiners, and FCCs are expected to represent a key component of our future strategies. If you look, the unique flexibility to handle diverse feedstocks, including renewable and chemical recycling streams, and the new challenges that they bring, they have a long runway ahead of them. And really, Grace is incredibly excited to be part of that future.
Excellent. Well, again, Luis, really can't thank you enough for just providing us a couple minutes of your time to discuss these important issues that are affecting the refining and petrochemical industries. Like you mentioned, it is a pretty exciting time to be within the downstream oil and gas industry. So really want to thank you for your time today. And again, like we always mention, we want to thank all of you for watching Hydrocarbon Processing's Executive Series. Till next time.